Hey guys, and welcome back to the Finance Now podcast. This podcast is purely for informational and educational purposes, and it's my way of sharing my knowledge, research, and opinions with you. I'm Anurag Birla, and funny enough, today I do not have any interesting earnings that I followed from this week. However, something that I'm sure we all came across in some capacity or the other was Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, their WWDC. I also want to talk a bit about the crypto industry and the recent news from this week surrounding it, but more on that a little bit later. So let's start with the WWDC. Obviously, this is an event that many people take active interest in, not only as shareholders, but, as consumers too. To elaborate a bit on the WWDC, it's one of Apple's biggest events annually, and it serves as a great marketing aspect where they launch, some of their newer developments software-wise, and also release some of their new hardware. It, enables shareholders, consumers, and just general fans of Apple to kind of learn about the direction of the company, the future of the company, what the product line looks like, and, the upgrades and updates that their systems are about to receive. It has, at least through the years, shown a bunch of groundbreaking and newer technologies. And, each year we as consumers just expect to see something pretty exceptional from Apple. That's just a standard they have set for us consumers as a company. And, this year was no different. We saw one of the biggest launches ever in terms of a newer product. And one that we haven't seen in years, but the technological updates and, aspects on Apple Silicon and how they're growing has, while surprised many, has also not really surprised us in terms of how advanced and how far they are along the innovation process. So before I talk extensively about the VisionPro, which was obviously the highlight of this event, let's just go over what some of the other updates were. Apple decided to launch a lot of new system and software upgrades. Now, this includes the iOS 17, which basically included updates with, forms of connectivity, making that much easier for users of Apple products and Apple phones especially. So updates with messaging, phone, and FaceTime were all a big part of kind of what they aim to focus on, basically enabling us to reply to text messages easier, enabling FaceTime connectivity with Apple TV. They also added the introduction of Journal. Journal is their new journaling app, to say pretty descriptive in the name, but essentially it's their new initiative that's helping. They seem to be taking a bit of a more health-focused direction. And Journal is, one of their kind of mental health tools that they would help inbuild into Apple software for consumers to use. They've added the ability to use Maps offline as well, which Androids actually have had previously. So this is kind of Apple playing catch up, but it always seems a bit more pronounced and exaggerated when Apple do something. And also another update is we don't have to say, "Hey Siri" anymore. Instead of saying, "Hey Siri," we just say Siri. And that's pretty cool because that's kind of following the tracks of Amazon's Alexa, where instead of saying, "Hey Alexa," we just say Alexa. So I think that's a pretty cool update within iOS 17. They also decided to add updates to iPad OS with the launch of iPad OS 17. Which aligns, Apple's aesthetic and vision of, the usage of widgets and how they're used for functionality and, making them just a more effective tool for consumers. So the widgets edition would enable more personalization and more interactive personal data on the iPad operating system. They've also introduced macOS Sonoma, which again added more widget functionality. That's their new Mac operating system. It has a new gaming mode, which improves the frame rate for gamers, so that kind of helps in competition with Windows PCs. Currently, Apple is not a favored computer for gaming. So I think they're looking to kind of change that aspect of things, and this is a start. On the more business side of the macOS Sonoma, they've added some improved video conferencing functionality, which is incredibly interesting. I mean, with Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Cisco WebEx, all being big tools of video conferencing, I think Apple sort of getting into the video conferencing specialty phase is important, because they're going to eat into that market share pretty well. I'm pretty confident on Apple's ability to steal customers from companies like Zoom and Cisco WebEx. Not sure about Microsoft Teams, but because of ease of use and the amount of corporations that use Apple computers, I think to have inbuilt video conferencing be an effective tool for businesses is only going to help weed out competition. Another update that they added was the Watch operating system with Watch OS 10. Again, widgets added. Much more easily accessible, and there's a bit more focus on health here, with additional functionality to cycling and hiking workouts specifically. And then, focusing on that theme of health and wellness, they added some more expansion on mindfulness as well. But it seems to be the key theme here. Apple's moving towards a much more widget and functional aesthetic as part of their products. And I'll elaborate a bit on this a bit later, but I think it's all part of an initiative to kind of gravitate towards that VisionPro and spatial computing aesthetic, to have widgets be incredibly accessible is kind of their vision. And I think if people saw the demo of VisionPro, you could perhaps see how widgets are going to play a big role in Apple's VisionPro operating system. Now, moving on, along with their software updates, they announced a new chip, which was the M2 Ultra. M2 Ultra is essentially two M2 Max chips, that have been combined for double the computing power. The M2 Max chips were something new that was launched last year, and with the M2 Ultra that has double the computing power of already one of Apple's strongest chips, the new capabilities are just incredible. It has the ability to support up to 6 Mac Pro displays at once. That's pretty incredible. I mean, they announced some other new hardware too. They announced the new Mac Studio model with M2 Max and the M2 Ultra chip. So already incorporating that into some of their products. The new Mac Pro model as well, which is their high-end desktop model. They also launched with the M2 Ultra chip as well. The new MacBook Air, which is their 15-inch MacBook Air, powered by an M2 chip, has up to 18 hours of battery life, 24 gigs of memory, and 2 terabytes of storage. So that's already a huge upgrade from the previous MacBook Airs, just purely based on computing power and storage power. They have a headphone jack, which continues their initiative of bringing it back in Apple laptops. I know we saw that with their MacBooks last year. So that's an initiative that's sort of coming back. Now with these updates, they're all great. They've been groundbreaking throughout the years, these system upgrades, but their biggest update this year was the announcement of their new mixed reality headset, which I've already mentioned, name dropped, and spoken about a few times today, but it's the VisionPro. Now, this is groundbreaking on so many levels, because as I learned more about the product, I started to think more about, all the technology and development that went into this, and I started to understand what exactly they've managed to achieve. And, that just blew my mind to see the state of where technology is and where innovation stands today. It's almost like it's from Black Mirror or something. It's incredible, to say the least. Now, for those that don't know, the VisionPro is obviously a new headset with what Apple calls spatial computing ability. Now, what does that mean? They They essentially have a new operating system called Vision OS. It uses a new R1 chip, which is developed by Apple. Um, and it changes the way we interact with digital products. It changes the way computing can be looked at. And, dare I say, it changes the way our workflow is going to take place, 10 years down the line. And in my opinion, we're really at the forefront of the innovation here. I wanted to talk a bit about the eyesight aspect. I mean, they focus quite diligently on avoiding that feeling of feeling cut out from the outside world. I guess when you look at Meta, which is probably their biggest competitor in the VR headset space, when you look at Meta's Quest, their product, their Oculus Quest, we see that, we kind of get absorbed into our own reality. Apple have done their best to avoid this feeling by allowing, people on the outside to kind of see your eyes and for you to not feel so disengaged from reality, and you're able to see them as well. Their entire VisionPro presentation did not revolve around entertainment. It mainly focused on usability of the product through work and general day-to-day life. I mean, it showed us, snippets of how photos can be taken. It showed us how video conferencing would work, how workflow would kind of work using the Vision Pro. So it's straight away from what Meta's Quest has kind of specialized in. The 3D camera, as I mentioned, it showed how we'd be able to capture moments live, and we'd be seeing them as we're taking the photos, and we'd be present in the moment without having to whip out a camera, which in a way is a big thing. I mean, I know I speak for myself here, but I know I just don't like the idea of taking too many photos, just because I find it annoying to whip out a phone and, all of a sudden start posing, and just to live moments and take photos of moments purely candidly is something I think they're aiming to achieve with this product. The headset, has no other device that comes with it, which is incredible. I mean, that was one of the most impressive things about the technology, that, Meta Quest uses two hand devices. I don't know what they're called, but they're they basically go in each hand, and that's kind of how you control the device. But, the Apple Vision Pro has no clunky hand device to be used. It's purely run through eye tracking and hand gestures that control the device, which was incredible when it came to understanding the magnitude of the technological advancements made here. The headset has a dial to control your level of immersion, which, also determines how detached or, aligned with the wider world you are. I mean, your eyes can be more seen the lower your immersion level is. So that's impressive. I mean, for those that want to kind of get immersed in their current TV show or their movie, they have that option. But for those that want to stay a part of, the room and be a part of the community and still kind of have their Vision Pro goggles on, it's an option for them too. I mean, I will say the one caveat for this is the hefty price that it comes with. And I know I've seen a lot of jokes here about, Apple launching $3,500 $3,500 ski goggles. Sorry, it's what people are calling them on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, sure, they look like ski goggles, but I think the extent of the technology is we're only scratching the surface here. And to know that developments are going to happen from here on, to know that, this is an entirely new product line that Apple are focusing on, is just incredible. And I know I use that word a lot today, but truly, I think Apple's event, their WWDC this year, has actually blown my mind. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen a product so attractive in years. Not because, it's Apple and I want to own the product, but because it changes the dynamic. And it changes the dynamic for every player in the computing game. I mean, spatial computing's a new concept now. We only know about, well, at least up until now, we've only seen about VR through the lens of companies like Oculus that take you into the supposed metaverse. But what Apple have strayed away from doing is acknowledging this idea of the metaverse, and they've essentially allowed you to compute and have computing powers and capabilities while remaining in this world, in this universe, which is amazing. I mean, I know, yeah, in comparison to Oculus, like the Quest costs, the different products range within the hundreds, and this Apple product is at 3,500. But let's bear in mind that this is the product. The name of this product is called the Vision Pro. Now, we all know Apple have the tendency to launch pro products, and they have the tendency to launch more budget products, more budget-friendly products. Let's not eliminate that possibility with the Vision Pro, is all I'm saying. I think, they've obviously gone with a high-end, high-tech, cutting-edge piece of technology here, but let's not eliminate the process of them simplifying that a little bit for more of a mass usage. I do think this is the start of something that's going to be incredible for them. It's going to serve them incredibly well in terms of functionality, as Vision Pro seems to cover a lot more than its competitors. I mean, Quest seems so focused on entertainment and gaming, whereas Vision Pro expands on that to a whole level. It acknowledges our day-to-day lifestyle. It talks about our workflow, which is incredible. I mean, the whole mixed reality aspect, the ability to see life as it is, along with, computer icons and mix our work. It's incredible. The augmented reality aspect of this is what really changes things. And Apple has done a great job, at least seemingly done a great job on integrating, both a virtual reality and reality. Hence the mixed reality term. Another interesting aspect of this was their partnership with Unity Software, which helped Unity's stock. It was the biggest jump in Unity's stock price since its IPO. And, Apple announced that Unity's gaming software will be used in Vision Pro, enhancing the platform for game developers. So just because Apple didn't mention anything about, gaming and entertainment, let's not eliminate their scope of it in comparison to Quest. I mean, Apple clearly seemed focused on entertainment. They had Bob Iger come out and talk about Disney's involvement in the Vision Pro, which was quite fascinating to say the least. We saw the immersive aspect. We saw Mickey Mouse sitting on a couch. It was pretty cool. It was pretty fun. And with Apple's focus on gaming in their Mac product line as well, we can see Apple's obviously taking entertainment and gaming pretty seriously going forward. Apple did mention that companies like Adobe, Cisco, and Microsoft are also developing Vision Pro apps, which is important. I mean, adoption is everything, right? And when companies start developing apps for these products, we can assume that, they've bought into the future of this product. And I think given that it's Apple, not many people are going to bet against it. But it will be interesting to see, given their price point, what their sales sort of look like over the next year or two. So to basically wrap up this Apple event, I think they knocked it out of the park with a new product. They're way ahead of their competition in terms of technological development, but as I mentioned, price point does remain a concern for many. I would like to say again, let's bear in mind this is a pro product, right? We can, and it's the first of its kind. So let's give Apple time. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They've always convinced customers that they sort of need their products, right? So let's give them the chance to do that again. Let's buy into the idea that maybe spatial computing will be something we'll all benefit by, and let's see where it takes us. I will say, if I had 3.5K US dollars just lying around to spend, I'd have 100% ordered it as soon as I could. I mean, it's it's worth, in my opinion, it's worth the hype. I don't know about the price, but it's definitely worth the hype. I would like to now kind of move on to briefly talking about the crypto industry. I mean, there was big news this week as the SEC has launched separate lawsuits against two crypto exchange giants, Binance and Coinbase. Now, crypto is such an ambiguous space. You know, when it comes to regulations and governance, there's just so much uncertainty around it. But both firms sort of face the same allegations here. You know, the fact that they're running an unregistered securities exchange. Binance faces some additional charges of, appropriating billions of dollars in customers' funds for its CEO's trading firm, misleading the customers, lying to regulators, and more. And kind of Binance's response to this has been, nope, we haven't done any of that. I mean, they've essentially just denied everything that the SEC have accused them of doing, which is quite funny. I mean, Coinbase have taken a similar approach, but a much softer one, claiming that the rules weren't as clear and they will operate as normal until, more clarity comes out on the lawsuits. But both are going to obviously fight this lawsuit hard. And yeah, Binance obviously have the more extreme allegations, but it comes at a time where regulators are really trying to crack down on crypto, given the risk it exposed to the banking industry earlier this year. I'm not sure how all of this is going to unfold. I'm not a legal expert either, but I do think the other side of this whole process is more regulation and governance around the running of crypto exchanges, especially after the whole FTX scandal. And, now the Binance accusations. I mean, trust in these exchanges has definitely diminished, and the stricter governance would only ensure less mishandling of customer funds. And it's kind of hard to see why that's a bad thing. It would be great to, continue to keep track of this and see how it unfolds. And I've always just personally, with regards to Coinbase, I've always strayed away from owning the stock, simply because I was never too sure about the regulatory aspect, and I think after this, I'm going to maintain that stance for a while. I do own some crypto, but, it'd probably be a better idea to hold them on a separate digital key rather than on an exchange, as it seems like many of them have some sort of shady business going on in the back end. So I guess that's my 2 cents on the current crypto news and the industry as a whole. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys continue to follow the news that unfolds. And if you did make it this far, I thank you for listening. Once again, I'm Anurag Birla, and this is Finance Now.
Welcome to paradise.